So Lorelei gave a definition of grand strategy just now, and this is my working one. It's the correlation of your economic engine and your national security strategy to meet the great global challenge of the era. And so it kind of gets to Frank's question right off the top of the bat, which is, I think there does have to be a great global challenge of the era, and I think you do need general recognition of that. So yes, I think, is it existential threat? I think, yes, it has to be some kind of a threat that's throwing off such significant crises and is definable as a single thing. And so it's a big challenge given kind of the mess that we've got right now to kind of cut through the noise and figure out, okay, what's the core of this? But I think it does require a focus. And it's, to some extent, it's that old consultant's rule, kind of the 80-20 rule, right? You try to solve 80% of the problem, and then the rest of the 20 is going to be easier. I think that's what you want to do. I think the Cold War, kind of dealing with communism, wasn't the only game in the international space during that time period, but it was the big thing we had to get right. And so I think that's how I'm defining what that core challenge is. As I said, we dealt with it. We dealt with this historically in World War II and with suburban growth, suburban expansion in the Cold War. The strategies themselves. World War II, we kind of had four components. We said we were going to arm and equip our allies. We were going to build a 16 million man army. We were going to fight a particular war plan, but then, which was Germany first, developed in the Arcadia Conference here in Washington, and then we were going to do it for a specific purpose, which was to engender a new liberal international order that would put an end to this type of stuff. That world disappeared pretty quickly. By 46 and 47, we recognized we were in the Cold War. And we needed this new way of dealing with it, and so we said we're going to contain the Soviets and outperform and outlast them, and that was both of those fundamentally required our economic engine to do the strategic heavy lifting. So we've updated, kind of using something called the balanced scorecard, which is a strategic planning tool coming out of Harvard Business School. We've updated this, and it kind of gets to some of the other questions coming from the field. What you do is you say, okay, well, what's that core economic challenge? What's that core global challenge that you want to deal with? And then the fundamental piece that you have to get right is your economic engine. And if you don't have that aligned against that core challenge, you're not going to be credible. So right now we're in a position where we're saying all this stuff about global justice, human rights. We're putting out all these principles about how we want the world to look. But our economic engine, which is $14 trillion of the global economy, which is about $42 trillion, is heading generally in the opposite direction. And what we're putting against that is $850 billion of national security funding. We're trying to say, can $850 billion overpower the kind of messed up logic of $14 trillion economy that is collapsing? We saw the financial system collapse in 2008. We're stuck in extremely high unemployment. Europe's stuck in high unemployment. We've got a massive middle class recession going on around the world. It's just not working, and there's a big gap between that economic, what we're promoting as our economic engine, and the challenges that we need to face.
Excuse me, Patrick.
Go ahead.
I think I missed something. Did you say what the core global challenge is from your perspective yet?
So this is the core global challenge from my perspective.
Thank you. We didn't rehearse that.
And it's good timing. And it's essentially what we're calling it uncreatively is global unsustainability. But we're defining it in four ways. It's the combination of these four factors: inclusion, depletion, and then recession and resilience. Inclusion is bringing 4 billion people into the global economy rapidly. The leading edge of it is rural-urban migration. China and India are bringing 675 million people into urban areas in the next 20 years, which is building 2 Americas worth of urban areas in a very rapid fashion, which is putting stress on our supply chains on global commodities, and on our global ecosystem. It's depletion, right? It's 350 is representative of the climate challenge, right? Getting to 350 parts per million, but it's more than that. The UN put out a great report called the UN Millennium Ecosystem Assessment that said not only climate change, but 60% of the ecosystem services put out by the ecosystem services generated by the planet are unsustainably managed. While the population is going to 9 billion, we're going to have less for more people. And that's creating a lot of dysfunction, as this group knows well. The next piece is recession, right? And you've got high unemployment here. We just went down to 9.1, which is great, but it's still historically extraordinarily high. Where in Europe, it's 10%. In China, you have the problem of a 300 million person middle class, where the middle class is expanding, but once you're in the middle class, your future slows down real fast. You don't continue to make the same kind of progress, and there's a lot of, you're not getting the income increases that you thought you were going to get, or at least at this pace and scale that you did when you came out of the villages. And then there's this resilience challenge, right? We've got systems and structures, supply chains that magnify risk and disruption instead of compartmentalizing. So this is a shot from the tsunami. What we saw, great case study in tsunami, there's a $3 gasket that's made in a factory in northern Japan that was affected by the tsunami, destroyed essentially. The absence of that part shut down the supply chains for all 6 major automakers and bumped our unemployment up from 8.9 to 9.1%. The system magnified risk instead of compartmentalized it, the way we've designed our industrial system. So, coming back to this, that's what I think the core global challenge is. Let me just kind of come back to this one. Sorry. Can you see that? So I think it's this four-fold problem of inclusion, depletion, recession, resilience. The thing is, with this, you cannot solve for any one of those individual problems. You can't solve for the sector. You have to solve for the system. And that's, I think, the lesson. These things are so large and so intertwined, you can't solve for any one alone. You have to take on the whole thing. And you have to take on the whole thing with an open mind about what's the best way to structure for doing that. And it's not going to look like the way we addressed the Cold War. It's going to require different architecture in terms of our national security institutions, and it's going to require a different economic engine. But that's what we've done. That's what we did in World War II and what we did in the Cold War. We reinvented ourselves, and we created the institutions and the economics to make it work. So I'll stop there because I'm talking a lot. But this is, I think, where I think the core global challenge is. I think we've got some great opportunities for actually meeting it, where our economic engine does the heavy lifting. But I'll stop there for now.